In chapter number 6, in my last videos, we discussed production. Production with one variable of input or two variables of input. Now we focus on the cost of the production. So chapter number 7 is focusing about the cost of production, and I divide this chapter into four parts, and in each video I'm going to explain each part. So let's start with the first part. First part mainly focus measuring cost, different definitions or different concepts of cost, like a variable cost, fixed cost, marginal cost, and sunk cost. So these are the things that we're going to discuss in detail about the cost perspective. So let's start with the first thing what we have to understand. So there is a difference between the accountants calculating the cost and the economist calculating the cost. So accounting cost or actual expenses plus depreciation charge for capital equipment. So and we call it as an explicit cost as well. So accounting cost is the cost which actually we incurred plus the depreciation, which is the spreading of the cost of assets over its useful life. So by this way we calculate the accounting cost. However, economic cost, cost to a firm of utilizing economic resources in production. So in short, if I explain what the major difference or the difference between accounting cost and economic cost is the opportunity cost. If we add up the opportunity cost with the explicit cost, that is the total cost in economic terms, and when we subtract this cost from the revenue, that's our economic profit. So the main difference is an opportunity cost, because accountants are not calculating the opportunity cost, but economists say, okay, if the owner is working, so the owner's wages and salaries should be, which is foregone if he works somewhere else, should be added as a opportunity cost of owner's work. If owner is investing some money, so the interest foregone on that capital or money which he invested in the business should be treated as an opportunity cost of foregone interest. So these are the things that we have to add up, and then we calculate the economic profit, and we also use the word implicit cost for the economic cost as well. So opportunity cost associated with the opportunity foregone when a firm's resources are not put to their best alternative use, or you can say that the second best alternative use is our opportunity cost. The concept of opportunity cost is particularly useful in situation where alternatives that are foregone do not reflect monetary outlays, and we know that there's a monetary outlays are not there when we are adding up a opportunity cost. So that's why we call it as an implicit cost. So economic cost is equal to opportunity cost. Sunk cost, this is a third term we can use with the cost, is sunk cost. Sunk cost means, as the name is reflecting, the amount which you already paid, consumed, or it's not recoverable. It's sunk, and that's why we call it as a sunk cost. So there are many costs which you cannot recover it. Whether you continue your business or whether you continue to use that asset or not, but it's already consumed, it's already spent. So there is no way that we can get it back. It's a different, like if you buy an asset and after a certain time you realize that okay, this asset is not useful, you sell it. So, but that's not a sunk cost. But if you buy a membership and you not use the membership of that club or something, and after a lapse of 1 year your membership is, so that's a sunk cost which is non-recoverable. Like you buy a ticket and that's a refundable ticket. So if you purchased it, then it's a sunk cost. You cannot recover it whether you go or not. That is so sunk cost expenditure that has been made and cannot be recovered. Because the sunk cost cannot be recovered, it should not influence the firm's decision. So because there is no possibility that we can recover it, So for that reason, economists believe, or in economics we say that they are not playing any important role in making decisions. If specialized equipment for a plant cannot be converted for alternative use, the expenditure on this equipment is a sunk cost because it has no alternative use. Its opportunity cost is zero, so thus it should not be included as a part of the firm's economic cost. So a prospective sunk cost is an investment. Here the firms must decide whether that investment is in specialized equipment is economical or not. So if there is a asset which is of a very particular use, there is no other use of it, when you invest it or you purchase that asset, then the cost of that asset is called as a sunk cost because you cannot recover it. Now here is an example to see about the cost, like what we discussed, economic cost and the accounting cost, with reference to a story. It's a story of a Chicago law school choosing the location for a new law school building. So the Northwestern University Law School has been located in Chicago along the shores of Lake Michigan. However, the main campus of the university is located in the suburb of the Evanston. In the mid 1970s, the law school began planning the construction of a new building. Prominent supporters argued that it was cost effective to locate the new building in the city because the university already owned the land which is in the main city. A large parcel of land would have to be purchased in Evanston if the building were to build there. So the land is there already in the city, but if they want to construct a building for a new building for a law school, they have to purchase the land outside in suburban areas of Evanston. Does this argument make economic sense? No, it makes the common mistake of failing to appreciate opportunity cost. From an economic point of view, it is very expensive to locate downtown because the opportunity cost of a valuable lakeshore location is very high. That property could have been sold for enough money to buy the Evanston land with the substantial funds left over. So if they sell it, they buy it, in the end, Northwestern decided to keep the law school in Chicago, and this was a costly decision. It may have been appropriate if the Chicago location was particularly valuable to the law school, but it was inappropriate if it was made on the presumption that the downtown land has no cost. So if some people who have no idea about the opportunity cost, they said if they already have a land, then why should they sell it and then buy a new land and then construct it? But they are not calculating the opportunity cost, that this land in the main city is very expensive. So if they use it, so they lost that opportunity that they can generate and construct a school somewhere else. So that's one definition or one explanation of a cost, like an economic cost, an accounting cost, and sunk costs. So these three things what we discussed so far. Now we divide this cost concept into two broader categories. One we call it as a fixed cost, and the other one is called as a variable cost. Now how we define the total cost? Total economic cost of production. So one thing which make it here clear. So whenever now we are using the word cost, it means economic cost. So we are not talking here about accounting cost. So no need to repeat again and again economic cost. But whenever we are using the word cost, it means economic cost. Total cost, or TC or a C, total economic cost of production consists of fixed cost and the variable cost. So we see here there is a fixed cost and the variable cost, and it's very commonly we use the word VC, variable cost, and FC for a fixed cost. What is a definition? We already have an idea that what is fixed cost: a cost which cannot change over a certain range for depending upon the output. So it doesn't change with the output over a certain range. So cost that does not vary with the level of output, and that can be eliminated only by shutting down. And fixed cost can be only eliminated if we shut down the business. However, the variable cost that varies as output varies. So fixed cost does not vary with the level of output. It must be paid even if there is no output. The only way that the firm can eliminate its fixed cost is by shutting down. So like a rent is a good example of a fixed cost. The cost of raw material is an example of variable cost. Shutting down. Now, what is we use the word here that if we want to eliminate or if we want to get rid of our fixed cost, then the only solution is that we shut down. Now, what is a condition or where the firm has to decide to shut down? Shutting down does not necessarily mean going out of a business. So there's a difference here we have to understand, and from the principles of microeconomics as well, like there is a concept of a shutting down and there is a concept of an exit. Now, exit means that you left the business forever, for good, no more business. But shutting down is that you close the business for a certain time when the market is not good or when there is some problem. So you close down your operations for a short period of time, and then you start again. So shutting down does not necessarily mean going out of the business. By reducing the output of that factory to zero, the company could eliminate the cost of raw materials and much of the labor. But it would still incur the fixed cost of paying the factory's managers, security guards, and ongoing maintenance. The only way to eliminate those fixed costs would be to close the doors, turn off the electricity, and perhaps even sell off or scrap the machinery. So this is the way that we call it as an exit. Now, why the fixed cost and variable cost is important from the shutting down point of view? Just shutting down point of view. Now, if the revenue what we are generating or the price we are getting for our product is higher than fixed cost, although it is not higher than the total cost, but if it is higher than fixed cost, then it is good to continue, because by this way you are covering at least the fixed cost and maybe some portion of your variable cost. But if the price or the revenue what you are generating is less than the fixed cost, then it is good, because by this way your loss is increasing, fixed cost. So what do we know? Which costs are fixed and which are variable? Over a very short time horizon, so on a few months, most costs are fixed. Over such a short period, a firm is usually obligated to pay for contracted shipment of material. Over a long period of horizon, say 10 years, nearly all costs are variable. Workers and managers can be laid off, or employment can be reduced by attritions, and much of his machinery can be sold off or not replaced by it because of obsolete and is scrapped. Now, there is a difference. We cannot confuse or misunderstand between the fixed and the sunk cost. Fixed cost cannot be avoided if the firm shut down a plant or goes out of a business. So sunk cost on the other hand are costs that can have been incurred and cannot be recovered. So fixed cost affect the firm's decision regarding decisions looking forward, whereas sunk costs do not. So fixed costs that are high relative to the revenue and cannot be reduced might lead to a firm to shut down. So that's what I said. Fixed costs that are high relative to the revenue, like the price or the revenue you are generating, and cannot be reduced, might lead a firms to shut down. So if you are not recovering your variable cost is even when you operate, so your cost is more than fixed cost plus variable cost, so it is good that we shut down. Cannot be reduced might lead to a firm to eliminate those fixed costs and earn zero profit might be better than incurring ongoing losses. So incurring a high sunk cost might later turn out to be a bad decision, but the expenditure is gone and cannot be recovered by shutting down. So shutting down has no link with the sunk cost because it's already done. We cannot recover it whether we shut down or we close the operations. So that's why it is not important. But fixed cost, yes, it is important when we are deciding whether to shut down or to. So if the price, the condition for shutdown, what we learn in our shutdown condition. Shutdown condition. So if the price of a product, what we are selling or what we are producing, is less than average variable cost, because if you cover the variable cost or little bit more than variable cost, but your you are not covering the whole total cost, so it means that you are reducing your fixed cost by this way, and we can say that this is the ideal condition for shutting. This is a condition where we have to shut down. If it is more than ABC but less than, then it is good, still good to continue, even we are making loss. Now, as sunk cost is a cost we incurred on certain assets, that can be a financial asset, that can be like you buy a membership, or you paid a membership fee for a year, so that's an asset, and you consume it over a year, month by month. So by this way we can say that it is not good to charge this whole amount at once, like in the beginning or in the month of January, but you have to amortize it, or it's just a concept, depreciation is a concept we use for fixed assets or a physical assets. Whatever the asset we have, we depreciate it over its useful life. But if the asset is of a nature which is of a financial or a intangible, then we normally amortize it over a period of its useful. So when we incur a sunk cost on an asset, so we can amortize the cost of that. So policy of treating a one-time expenditure as an annual cost spread over some number of years. So amortizing large capital expenditure and treating them as an ongoing fixed can simplify the economic analysis of the firm's operation. As we will see, treating capital expenditure this way can make it easier to understand the trade-off that a firm faces in its use of labor versus capital. So we will see later that we have to decide input mixes with the effect of a cost. So we'll see that how we can use which combination, and you know that in countries, in areas where the population is large, so they try to utilize more labor and less capital, and those countries where the population is small, so they try to use more capital, less labor. So that's the way that it works. So when distinguishing sunk from the fixed cost does become essential to the economic analysis, we will let you know. Now here are some examples that we can see about these sunk, fixed and variable costs. Computer, software and pizzas. So it is important to understand the characteristics of a production cost and to be able to identify which costs are fixed, which are variable and which are sunk costs. So when you buy a computer, because computers are very similar, competition is intense and profitability depends on the ability to keep costs down. So most important are the cost of components and labor, so what you are using to produce computers. If you are developing softwares, a software firm will spend a large amount of money to develop a new application. The company can recoup its investment by selling as many copies of the program as possible. So here you see that there is a lot of sunk cost or fixed cost. Variable cost is very small. Pizzas. For the pizzeria, sunk costs are fairly low because equipment can be resold if the pizzeria goes out of business. Variable costs are low, mainly the ingredients of pizza and perhaps wages for a worker to deliver pizzas. This textbook, which we are following here in this course, most of the costs are sunk cost. The opportunity cost of author's time spent writing and revising the book, and the cost of the publisher for copy editing, typesetting and proofreading. As with the computer software, textbook production cost needs have a little connection to the price of you paid for the book. So again, in a book, there's a huge sunk cost or fixed cost, but a very small comparative to the price of the book is a very the variable cost is very nominal. And nowadays in a digital world we see that now the variable costs are reducing. If you develop some app or a software or a song or a video or a movie, whatever in digital terms you produce, for producing an extra unit, you see that the cost is almost zero. So it means that when you are producing more and more units, the variable cost is not increasing. So the only cost what you spend when you creating that thing is the fixed cost or a sunk cost at that time. So here is an example. We see these figures to get the whole idea that how we can get these costs. So rate of output units per year. So these are the output, like you can say it's in thousands or whatever, but here we are just taking a numbers, very simple numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So these are the rate of output units per year. So in a year, how much we are producing. The next line is a fixed cost for producing those goods, and that's you see here whether you are producing zero output, like you see here zero output, even then we have a fixed cost of 50, or we are producing 11 output, the fixed cost is 50, still 50. So 50 50 50 is a fixed cost. Variable cost, however, as we are, if we are producing 0 units, the variable cost is 0. But when we start producing more and more units, like 1, 2, 3, the variable cost is increasing, like from 0 to 50, 78, 98, 120, and so on. So when you combine these two, fixed cost and variable cost, so this column 1 plus 2, so this is going to be this number I'm talking, not this one. So 1 plus 2 is going to be the total cost. So at a 0 level of output, the total cost is just like a fixed cost, so it's 50. At the level of 1 output, the total cost is 100, 50 variable cost, 50 fixed cost, and by this way we have it. At the level of 2 output, the total cost is 128, 78 plus 50. So it's all together like this. So fixed cost plus variable cost is our total cost. Now marginal cost. Marginal cost is a change in total cost divided by change in output. So we can see here the change here is 50 and the change here is 1. So 50 divided by 1 is 50. Here the change is 28 and the change here is 1. So 28 divided by 1 is 28. So by this way we calculate the marginal cost. Change in total cost divided by change in output. Now averages, we can see here these are the averages per unit of output. So we can say fixed cost divided by output, because the output level at the in the first row is 0, so we cannot determine it. But when it is 1, so 50 divided by 1 is 50, 50 divided by 2 is 25, 50 divided by 3 is 16.7. So this is the total fixed cost. So you see the total fixed cost is always decreasing because the number of units we are producing more divided by them. The third column is average variable cost, and we see here again the average variable cost. Just so average variable cost is just divide the variable cost with the number of units what we are producing, so we get it average variable cost. Average total cost is again the sum of the average fixed cost plus average variable cost, so we get it. Or you can divide the total fixed total cost by the number of units we produce. So it's important that you understand this whole table. And now here we are theoretically discussing what we calculated here, what we are discussing here theoretically, like a marginal cost, increase in cost resulting from a production of an extra unit of output, and how we can determine. So as I mentioned, change in variable cost divided by change in output, or we can write it as a change in total cost. I explained you through this formula, like change in total cost divided by change in output. But if you think deep in this way, because the change in total cost is only because of a variable cost, because fixed cost is not changing, So we can say that change in total cost or change in variable cost is equal here in this scenario, divided by change in output. So that's going to give us a marginal cost. Average cost, we also learn in this table that how we calculate it. Firm's total cost divided by the level of output. Firm's average fixed cost divided by the level of output. Average variable cost divided by the level of output. Now, mining cost and which cost matter, that important for the decision makers in the business, for the managers in the business. One of the very important cost the managers must have to keep it in mind is the marginal cost. Like if they want to produce one more unit, how much cost it costs them, and that should be very accurate because they have to determine the price or the market, how much they have to produce based on this. So that's important. The change in variable cost is the per unit cost of extra labor, W, times the amount of extra labor needed to produce the extra output, delta L. So because AVC change in AVC is W wage rate into delta L. So basically what we are doing, we are assuming here that in order to produce one extra unit, we only need a labor. So if we need a labor, so how much that cost us by multiplying the wage rate, this W is a wage rate, and delta L is the change in labor. So we here use this again, the formula what we discuss here, change in average, change in variable cost divided by change in quantity, and we write it this in a way like W delta L over delta Q, because W is not changing, the delta L, the number of hours we are using to produce is changing. So that's L is stands for labor hours. The extra labor needed to obtain an extra unit of output is delta L over delta Q. Delta L over delta Q, which is 1 over MPL, or as a result we can see that MPC, because you know it's a how much labor we are producing, how much output we are producing by using one labor, right? So that's our output. Extra unit of output is delta L, how the change in labor divided by change in output, which is 1 over MPL. If it is delta Q over delta L, then it is MPL, just a marginal product of labor. But when we inverse it, so we get it 1 over MPL. And when we plug in the values of this delta L over delta Q, so we can multiply this, because we in this formula we have a delta L over delta Q. So MPL, basically the marginal product of labor, is delta Q, how much the units they are producing, divided by delta L. But in this formula we have need a inverse of it. So inverse of it, we can write it like 1 over MPL, right? If we want to change, we can change. So 1 over MPL into W is going to give us this. That's a marginal cost of a labor. So W over MPL. And we all know that the law of diminishing returns, that if we are adding up only labor, so the output is increasing but with a decreasing rates, and that's what we call it as a diminishing marginal returns. So diminishing marginal return means that the marginal product of labor declines as the quantity of labor employed increases. As a result, when there are diminishing marginal returns, marginal cost will increase as the output decreases. So this is our first part, and in second part we're going to discuss few more things related to the cost, and these are important and interesting concepts, so please stay tuned, and we see you again in the part 2.